Okay, I'm getting bored of trying to figure out why my PDFs, why the links that I'm adding to my PDFs are not working. So I figure I'll take this time to explain a couple of concepts. I'm eventually gonna probably put out, when I can find the time, put out a glossary of terms, because there's a lot of terms that you just don't really come across in everyday life when you're doing election integrity work. And ideally, we'll get rid of the machines so we don't have to sit here and teach the next generation all of these terms. We can have them stored away, but in order to get rid of these machines, you have to know about them. You have to be able to accurately describe the issues, so you have to know what you're talking about. So I think that we've covered PVRs and CVRs. PVRs are the printed vote record as to the CVRs, which are the cast vote record. The PVRs are the paper record, the CVR is the electronic record. And I think we've covered that pretty well. Then there's BMDs and DREs. So BMDs are the ballot marking devices that utilize the PVRs. The PVR is like a receipt for your electronic ballot that they'll never let you see again. They really don't want you to be looking at the PVRs. So the BMD is a ballot marking device that uses the fake ballot, the PVR, as a receipt for your CVR, which is 100% electronic. The CVR is truly what they're treating as the official record. And we have evidence for that they do treat the CVRs as the official record. So that's a BMD. A DRE is a direct recording electronic device where there's no paper record at all. You only have the electronic record, which is the CVRs. That's the only record you have at all with DRE systems. And there are still some of those in existence in Texas. There are some of those in existence. I thought that I would take a break from trying to insert all of these links into my PDFs, which are not working for some reason, and cover the concept of hash codes. So I'm not sure if you know about hash codes, if you've heard about them. Some of you might already know what they are. I didn't really know what they were. So there was a meeting a couple weeks ago. It wasn't my meeting, but I went to it. I sort of crashed it. And in that meeting, I don't remember if I brought it up or if someone else did, but Hyder was like, oh, I'll show you what a hash code is. So he pulled open a little file on his computer, and all it said was hello. And he said, I'll pull the hash code for this file, I'll show you. So he pulled the hash code, and he says, now watch what happens when I make a change. And he hit the space bar. And then he said, I'll pull the hash code for this too. So he pulled that hash code. And it was an altogether different code. So a hash code is like a serialized number. It's got letters. It's a code. And it's got letters and numbers, and it represents one version of a file. So if there's any changes at all, it should result in an altogether different hash code. Okay. Now, what I don't remember from that display of what a hash code is whether or not he deleted that space and pulled the hash code, and if it I don't think he did that. I think he did something else and pulled a third hash code. But ideally, in theory, you'll have the original hash code for the original file, then a space is made, you pull the hash code and it's different, and then you delete the space that you just made. You should pull that hash code and it should result in a third hash code. That's my question. Does it result in a third hash code, or does it revert back to the original one because you deleted the change? Somebody asked that recently, and I think the basic answer is it pulls a third hash code. Ideally, that's what would happen. So that's what a hash code is. So when you hear the term hash code or hash verification, that's what they're talking about. They're talking about the code for the actual file, or a program, the version of a program. Okay, and they're going to compare that with the hash code on file with the EAC or with your Secretary of State. Stupid piece of hair. And it should match what the EAC provides for example, Heart Verity 2.5.1, which is what our controllers are on. If we pull the hash code from those controllers, it should match what was certified on a specific date by the EAC, okay? And also by the Secretary of State. Like, I think that all the hash verification codes should like line up and match up, right? So our controllers are on 2.5.1. An interesting thing is that they just upgraded the scanner program to 2.5.2. So those won't be, I don't know if the scanner and the controller for Heart Verity would have the same hash code, even if it's the same version, because it's a scanner program and a controller program, so probably they'd have different hash codes, right? But anyways, they're not the same program. 2.5.1 and 2.5.2, they upgraded just the scanners, and nobody really knows like what they do when they do these upgrades, but they know that all they know is that, well, we've got a new hash code and it matches what it's supposed to say. This is what it's supposed to say. You know, that's all that kind of happens with these hash codes. They just say, well, here's a hash code and it matches what I was told, which, you know, if hash codes were like a widely understood thing, that might be different, but they're not. So, and I heard something recently about something called a golden hash code. Heard about that? I don't know really what that means or what that is, but that it has something to do with ESNS and a golden hash code being out there. Very strange. So I'll probably release soon like a glossary of terms, and because there's a lot of terms in the election integrity movement that you just don't really run across in regular life. So that's hash code verifications for the glossary of terms. There's also PVRs, CVRs, BMDs, DREs. You might know what all those are, but I'm going to put them into a glossary of terms. And ideally, this is just for records, ideally we'll get rid of the machines and we won't have to, you know, do all this. But in order to get rid of the machines, you have to know about them. You have to know what they are, what they do, where it goes wrong. You got to know the details. So that's what I wanted to just take a break from working on my stupid PDFs whose links are not working, and go ahead and do a short video on hash codes, what hash codes are.